Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning on a chilly morning, but an exciting morning nonetheless. If you are a part of the emails from the Trump-Vance transition team, you woke up to a slew of exciting news. We're going to talk about it in depth, and I do have a few comments from viewers. But first, let's just go through some of the names, and then again, later on in the broadcast, we'll talk about them specifically. We do have some other quick updates that we should get to before we jump right into it. But first, we heard that Kristi Noem, the governor and former congresswoman from South Dakota, will be appointed to serve as the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. We learned that, as Donald Trump calls him, the great Elon Musk, in conjunction with American patriot Vivek Ramaswamy, will lead the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, I love the name. I also love that it breaks down to Doge, as in Dogecoin and what Musk was pushing at one point. They are going, and those are two people that I know many on this program had been hoping would play a very important role, and clearly they will be, in the Trump administration. Then we heard, and this is kind of out of the blue, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm not saying that in any negative way. This was not a name that was on, at least that we had mentioned, any kind of short list that I saw. But from Fox, Pete Hegseth is going to serve as Secretary of Defense. Wow. Again, in no way, shape, or form a criticism. I think this is one of the picks that you expect from Donald Trump, just like back in 2016. And that's why I said on the program, this is one of the very exciting things when your candidate wins, that you get to see the shaping up of what the administration will look like. And when it comes to if Trump was your candidate, it's even more exciting because you really don't know what direction the cabinet is going to go, or cabinet, or whatever the case may be, administration in general. Then we heard that John Radcliffe, the former director of national intelligence, will serve as director of the CIA. We also hear from Congressman Mike Walls will be the National Security Advisor. This is just this morning. It was 17 pages of statements from Donald Trump of different announcements. And finally, and this is going to tie in, not finally, we have Stephen Witkoff is going to be the special envoy to the Middle East. We also have William Joseph McGinley will serve as his White House counsel. And we're going to dive into a little more depth on each of these people. Maybe even, I don't know if we'll be able to have the time to read all the statements that he made. Some of them very lengthy, but we may get to that. But I'm excited about this one too, because we talk so often, and we do have a couple updates on this, as a matter of fact, today, about Israel and Hamas. Well, it was announced yesterday that Mike Huckabee has been nominated to be the United States ambassador to Israel. that is I think another very exciting bit of these announcements. And we're going to talk about that as well. All right, so that's just if you were waking up this morning and haven't seen that breaking news. Some of it coming in very late last night, early this morning. But let's, before we dive into all the topics of the day, let's go to a viewer comment. Trump is meeting up today with Joe Biden. I'm thinking the way Trump is, he'll probably tell him he thinks it was a bad deal the way they took him out of the election, and that he would probably have done much better if he had been allowed to stay in. I hope that's captured on film, but I think he'll say it off camera. I could see that. I couldn't agree more. I could see it being on camera too, or after the fact saying, I told Joe. Because there's something to say there. Did you see the, what's the word I want to look at? What's the word I'm looking for? The kind of the cold shoulder that Jill Biden gave Kamala Harris yesterday. We'll talk about that as well. But yeah, that meeting is going to be very interesting. Just over a year after his sweeping election victory. Did I say a year? It seems like it's been a year with all these announcements. Just over a week after the sweeping election victory, former and future President Donald Trump returned to the White House today. Trump is returning his first time back in nearly 4 years at the invitation of the man he knocked out of the 2024 White House race, President Biden. The two presidents will sit down in the Oval Office around 11 a.m. this morning, according to the White House. For Biden, who ended his re-election bid in July, a month after that debate performance, this is a meeting that with his predecessor, now successor, that it may be awkward, as Fox News puts it. Trump spent years verbally eviscerating President Biden and his performance in the White House. And even after Biden ended his re-election bid, Trump continued to slam the president and, of course, his running mate, or his vice president, I should say, Kamala Harris. And you've got to say, on the other side of that coin, Biden has spent years saying that Trump is a threat to democracy, too. So it would be a very interesting meeting to be a fly on the wall. I don't really know if it'll be awkward necessarily. I think they're both professionals. I think they're both, they know that it's the name of the game in many instances. Now, I do think Biden and Harris took it too far with this constant claim of threat to democracy and being a fascist and these type of things. But having said that, I'm sure it's going to be basically just a formality in a way, because it is a tradition. Now, it's a tradition, though, that was skipped 4 years ago. Now, President Biden said after his call that he made to Trump last week, I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team. Trump's team, in an apparent change of tone toward Biden, said the president-elect is looking forward to the meeting. Biden's offer to Trump to visit the White House was an invitation he himself was never accorded. 4 years ago, in the wake of the election defeat at the hands of Biden, Trump refused to concede and tried unsuccessfully, as you know, to overturn the results. And I don't want to go through the whole history of this meeting, that it's a kind of a quote-unquote tradition. But yes, that would definitely be a meeting that I would love to attend. And I don't know if cameras will be in the room. I'm sure there'll be points, because you remember all those times back in 2016 where you had the photos of Trump meeting with various people. I'm not sure if this is open, and I don't think it says, but I'm sure if it is open to cameras, it'll be very interesting. Okay, so we just covered a lot right there. Okay. But the big question this morning, as I said, what do you think of the selections by Donald Trump for his administration? He's hitting the ground running. I mean, a little over a week and a day since election. And really, it was called about this time last week. So he's already made so many choices, not just choices, important choices. Your thoughts? I know a lot of you will miss P. Hegseth on Fox News, but I think you can't blame him. There's also the idea that with with the pick of Waltz and Stefanik, that's two people taken away from the House. There's some concerns there because it is going to be, it looks like, a very close majority for Republicans in the House. But those are two areas where, two districts, I should say, where they're pretty solidly Republican. So with the selection of Elise Stefanik as his ambassador to the United Nations, and then you've got Representative Mike Waltz from Florida as his national security advisor. Now, they will be taken from the House in that scenario, but both represent Republican stronghold districts. They have little chance of falling into Democratic hands in special elections. So, again, if it's a slim majority, there is always some concern there. But these special elections could take place weeks or months after the new term begins in January, which would slow down Trump's plans for an ambitious first 100-day agenda. Steve Scalise saying, that's an agenda that we've been working on with President Trump for months now. We didn't wait until the day after the election to start planning this. And this shows the relentless focus of Donald Trump. I know he's already pulled a few really talented people out of the House. Hopefully, no more for a little while until special elections come up. But it shows you the talent that we have and the ability that we have. Mike Johnson saying President Trump fully understands and appreciates the math here, and it's just a numbers game. You know, we believe we're going to have a larger majority than we had last time. It's too early to handicap, but we are optimistic about that. Just to show you that continuing, but every single vote will count, because if someone gets ill or has a car accident or a late flight on their plane, then it affects the votes on the floor. So I think he and administration are well attuned to that. I don't expect that we will have more members leaving, but I'll leave that up to him. And again, those don't think that wasn't taken into mind. Those are two areas that are districts that are very strong Republican strongholds. So keep in mind that's something that he would also, in making his decision, make sure that he takes into consideration. But those are something to keep in mind, because as we continue to talk about, and I know the House Republicans declared victory in saying that it's a majority, it's still very close. It's not official yet. I think the Republicans are within 2 of winning the majority in the House. But anyway, we're going to talk about some other issues and then take a deep dive into who Donald Trump is selecting for his administration. But I would love to hear your opinion this morning. So we're just getting warmed up. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Today's topic: increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustle Sins, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save it to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustle Sins' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustle Sins. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustle Sins.
Bishop has been called the greatest illusionist of his generation. Close-up magic, sleight of hand, exclusive grand illusions. Your entire family will be amazed by the best touring magic show today. Get your tickets today for Jason Bishop.
This Saturday at the Clemens Center, clemenscenter.org.
I'm Mary Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me, to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street that you just saw the roof camera overlooking. I also want to make a quick side note here. I want to thank Steuben Senior Services Fund for sponsoring our interviews. We've been so busy with updates from after the election that the interviews are starting to come through just a few days here, so we can, about a week, where we can dissect all the election coverage, and we will get back into interviews. So don't worry about that. We have plenty lined up these next couple weeks. All right, comment from a viewer. So far, I like what I see in this new Trump administration. I really feel like they're going to hit the ground running. Yes, I think they're going to be ready. And some of these Trump had to be prepared for well in advance, like Pete Hegseth and Mike Huckabee almost seems obvious for being ambassador to Israel, doesn't he? Though, again, it was a name that I'm not saying I hadn't thought of, but it wasn't on the top of my mind. But and Elise Stefanik, you figure she was going to be a part of the administration. But Lee Zeldin is another one that a lot of people have come up to me and just wanted to talk about the administration, saying, did you expect Lee Zeldin? And it makes sense, almost a reward for the hard work that Lee Zeldin did here in our state to win the Republicans the majority back at the midterms. And just a great position for him. We do have a story here a little bit later on, not a story, but an opinion piece that I would like to get your opinion on as well about Governor Kathy Hochul, because some are disappointed. Will this affect Lee Zeldin running against her again? I would assume it would. But Governor Hochul and her kind of selling out New Yorkers for just a political push, a political talking point, which was her attacks on Donald Trump. And really hurting her state because she, again, wants to be some type of kingmaker, power broker. She just doesn't have it in her, of course. We've talked that she's not ready for prime time. We've mentioned it numerous times on this program. And you see it in her statement right after, or right around the time, I don't remember the exact time. Yeah, I think it was right after the time frame when Joe Biden called Trump supporters garbage, which, looking at the numbers now, that's even more harmful to the Democrat Party in general. But right after that, Governor Hochul saying that anybody that votes Republican is anti-American and anti-woman. Not the right time for that, but it shows you that she's not a mover and a shaker, because that did not get the attention nationally that it should have. Barely got the attention statewide. It really took a lot of conservatives spreading the word on it to really have people talk about it. But at the same time, it goes to show you that she is not a mover and a shaker. A couple quick updates on how, well, we talk about the education system so often on this program. And unfortunately, this hit somewhat in our backyard. Hundreds of posters depicting Jewish faculty members as, quote, wanted, the typical wanted poster, were plastered across the University of Rochester campus on Sunday night. An anti-Semitic act, the school president said, would not be tolerated. The posters criticized faculty members for their alleged response to the war in Gaza. One poster accuses a faculty member of ethnic cleansing and displacement of Palestinians. A different poster accuses another faculty member of racism, hate speech, and intimidation. Imagine the irony there of putting up wanted posters and saying someone else is responsible for intimidation. The university president, Sarah Mangelsdorf, said, I want to be as clear as I can that the University of Rochester strongly denounces the recent display of wanted posters targeting senior university leadership and members of our faculty, staff, and board of trustees. This act is disturbing, divisive, and intimidating, and runs counter to our values as a university. The university's Hillel organization, which represents Jewish students, called the posters deeply disturbing in a statement to CNN. The organization called the incident an opportunity for the university to reflect on what it is needed to instill meaningful education about Jewish peoplehood and anti-Semitism so that UR is a place where Jewish life can fully and safely thrive. So I wanted to give you that as an update from a story that we bring up so frequently on this program, and unfortunately, I wish we didn't have to bring it up at all, but the anti-Semitism that has run amok on campuses and which has really in full effect in major cities in some of these protests. we saw on the one university where, I think it was Columbia, where on Veterans Day, the anti-Semitic group had a counter-protest. Imagine that, a counter-protest. And that's not even the right term because the veterans aren't protesting, but I think that's the word that was used in the article, counter-protest, where they came in and called it Martyrs Day and blamed veterans for horrible, horrible things. But it's, these kind of values, lack of values really, are coming not just from the college campuses. We mentioned it a million times, but it's starting well before that. Look at this, another example from yesterday. We had a teacher that was suspended for what they said about Trump, an AP World History teacher. Now we've got one in Connecticut. A Connecticut teacher was placed on leave for posting a Snapchat video of herself making violent threats against voters who chose President-elect Donald Trump. Chapman School special education teacher Annie Dolevy said that she would put Trump supporters, quote, on a stretcher if they tested their gangster on her. Now, this is some slang that I don't quite understand, but there's also a lot of cussing, so I've got to be careful. I'm so serious. Nobody blanking talk to me unless you want to swing. If you want to fight, text me, call me, whatever. Anybody else, stay out of my face. If you voted for Trump, literally, please delete me, block me, get rid of me, everything of me, or step to me so that I know what's up and I can handle you how I see fit. This is an educator. Cheshire Public School Superintendent Dr. Jeff Sloan was notified about the video over the weekend and assured that the teacher in question was sharing her personal views in what was meant to be a private message. They're reviewing the situation as a personal matter and as such are following all applicable laws. That being said, it is immediately clear that it will be impossible to conduct business as usual for our students and staff without temporarily removing the teacher from the building, so we have done so until the outcome of the investigation. Just yet another example, and one worth mentioning, but it ties in with what people are saying. I don't know if you've already seen the reports, and this was happening especially during 2016. Every Thanksgiving, every holiday, how do you talk to your Trump-supporting uncle at the dinner table? How can, and it actually became cliche to the point where you could write the article yourself a couple months before. I see that Whoopi Goldberg on The View says that she agrees with Vice President Kamala Harris voters who want to avoid family members who voted for President-elect Donald Trump during the holidays. It was a panel discussion about Yale University chief psychiatry resident Dr. Amanda Calhoun, saying liberals who were devastated by Donald Trump's presidential reelection should separate from family members who voted for him. So tolerant, huh? Co-host Sunny Hostin said, I completely understand her point because I really do feel that this candidate, President-elect Trump, is just a different type of candidate from the things he said and the things he's done and the things he will do. It's more of a moral issue for me. I think it's more of a moral issue for other people. I would say it was different when, let's say, George Bush got elected. You may not have agreed with his policies, but you didn't feel like he was a deeply flawed person, deeply flawed by character, deeply flawed in morality. I love the rewriting, and this happens a lot, the rewriting of history as if they treated George W. Bush, unless she's saying George H.W. Bush, maybe. I don't remember those times specifically, but George W. Bush, they treated him with disdain as well, not to the level that they do Trump, but to the level they do any Republican. So rewriting of the history there, but suggesting that back then family get-togethers were fine, then politics never came up. But Whoopi Goldberg said, I appreciate the voters, but I will say somebody who tells me that my child is wrong because of how he or she feels, that tells me that they shouldn't be allowed to be who they are with my permission. I have to question it. I don't want to put my kid in that position. There are certain things you don't have to put your family in the middle of it. You can have dinner at another point, but it might not be the time to gather because there's going to be some tension. So I appreciate the voters, but I will say somebody who tells me that my child is wrong because of how he or she feels, that tells me that they shouldn't be allowed to be who they are with my permission. I'm confused by it. Shouldn't be allowed to be who they are with my permission. That's a weird way of putting that. So now we have vocal support from The View, from Yale, saying that you shouldn't spend time with your family because of politics, because Trump is so bad. Now, take that however you feel. Maybe some Trump-supporting family members are saying, I don't have to go to Thanksgiving dinner this year. I don't know. But just to add on to that, and this is just to show you what's happening, because you see the extreme coming back out. It was such a decisive victory, such a landslide victory from Trump, I think there was a lot of shock. And we had said this probably on Wednesday's show, but it might have been Thursday's show last week, that right now, this kind of calm before the storm, kind of the lull, not to say it wasn't bad, but as we near January 20th, and January 6th to a point, but January 20th, it will get more extreme, more aggressive, and now you're starting to see it more and more with statements like that. Not having learned their lesson. You know, it goes back to what Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin and that Yale professor are saying there, is essentially you don't have to have Thanksgiving with garbage, right? That's what Biden called 50%, over 50% of the country. So that's what they're saying there, not having learned their lesson. And again, all being the ones that preach tolerance and understanding. One last thing tying directly into that before we go to a break. I take this with a grain of salt. It's coming from the Mirror out of the United Kingdom, but it just worked in so perfectly with what Whoopi Goldberg and The View were saying. A man took to social media because he is shocked that his wife has filed for divorce after he voted for Trump. The distraught husband wrote on social media that he had been left without words, that the marriage could fall apart over politics. I voted for Trump. My wife sent me divorce papers. What do? I didn't even know it was possible to be served divorce papers this quickly. I don't even know what to say. I'm shocked. I married somebody willing to throw away our entire life over politics. Last week we were happy. Today we're getting divorced. She won't have a discussion. She says nothing will change her mind. Insists she is going to report my parents because they live off disability, but my dad does some cash work, auto repair. So now I'm worried for my whole family. This is, we saw in 2016. These are common trends that we will see the extreme nature. Look at you can't go from one day calling someone a dictator and a fascist and comparing him to Hitler. Next day, you lose an election handily, lose it, in a landslide fashion, and then just say, never mind about that other stuff. Let's just calm down. Maybe we should do some soul searching and see what went wrong. No, of course, that extreme hatred is still going to be festering inside. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, the portable oxygen concentrator that moves with you.
This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do. You just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen portable oxygen systems are small and light and deliver up to 12 hours of medical-grade oxygen on a single charge.
Now that I've got my Inogen, I've got my freedom back. I'm back to living again.
Try an Inogen system free for 14 days. Call now.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Call them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. So many great comments coming in. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. If I recall, I don't think Trump ever did get the full staff he was allowed during his first term because of the resistance and constant attacks on him. Am I right? Only asking because I hope this isn't the case now. Well, I don't remember the exact numbers back then in 2016 because there's always a confirmation, and it can be. That's why one of the reasons why I was asking for the recess confirmation, or whatever the official term for it is. But yes. I'm sure I remember there was obviously fights back then. I don't remember if he got everybody he wanted. That's always a real concern for any president. I feel like people watch, like in the mainstream media, watch this program, because have you noticed how all the headlines, and we were criticizing it yesterday and the day before, Trump picks loyalists. Of course he does. Like I said yesterday, of course he does. No president picks someone that's not loyal to them. It's not as if Biden went in and said, "Oh, that person hates me. That person served in the Trump administration. Bring him in. Come on." Anyway, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Comment from a viewer. I hope Trump will have eaten before his meeting with Biden today and he brings his own water. Okay, now. Do you want to let's get into that. Well, I do have a couple other things. We'll go through them quickly. We're going to talk about the picks for his administration coming up in just a little bit. Just a couple things to catch up on, because we have not talked about this because so many things going on in the election, and I regret that. I wish we would have had an opportunity the last few days to talk about it. But Republicans are now vowing to investigate FEMA. Now, if you didn't see this, when I first saw the picture, it almost seemed fabricated. It almost seemed like something you might see on social media and kind of discredit, thinking, well, come on, there's no one going to put this in text form, sending it to, according to the picture, 13 to 14 participants. No one's going to really do that. Well, if you're not familiar with it, what happened is FEMA fired supervisor claimed that what she had demanded of her staff, without getting too tongue-tied here, is that they ignored Trump supporting homes as part of the disaster recovery efforts. Now, as I said, congressional Republicans are vowing to launch a probe into this and multiple investigations into FEMA. North Carolina GOP Senator Ted Budd said this will be investigated. Anyone who abuses the power of the federal government to hurt North Carolinians in need will be held accountable. I will personally see to it. Josh Hawley, a member of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, urged his panel to launch a probe and haul the sacked employee in for sworn testimony. He said the Homeland Security Committee needs to launch an immediate investigation and call this individual to testify under oath in public. So what the text said to the staff that were supposed to be helping people on the ground, and again, I think if you just saw it, and one thing an ex-employee for FEMA said, FEMA preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. This is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance. What is that noise? Huh. Not just in the state of Florida. You will find avoidances in the Carolinas. So the text said, implement best practices. No one goes anywhere alone. Avoid homes advertising Trump. Practice de-escalation and preventative measures. Communicate and follow the rules. Bring a towel with you tomorrow in the field. Frequent breaks and drink water, etc., etc. This was standard operating procedure at FEMA. The bureaucracy of FEMA. And as Isaac Shore said in a piece today, FEMA not helping Trump voters wasn't isolated. And it's a massive, massive scandal that is it was overlooked on this program, temporarily anyway. And the reason is there's a lot to cover, right? Like I said, I had 17 pages this morning of Trump statements about people he's picking for his administration. She calls it, or they call it here at the Post, I'm sorry, potentially titanic proportions, a scandal of potentially titanic proportions. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell fired Marnie Washington, the official accused of discriminating against Donald Trump supporting hurricane victims in Florida, casting her as a lone wolf, a bad apple, and an orchard full of good ones. Not so fast. On Tuesday, Washington, and another ex-FEMA employee who spoke with the Post disputed to the relatively rosy picture painted by Criswell. Yes, that was the, hey, avoidance is what they always preach. This is not just happening in Florida. It happened in the Caroline. Oh, I don't know why I'm having trouble this morning with some of these words. And they went through and they interviewed numerous FEMA employees, the Post did, and found out that this is common practice. Now imagine if this came out against any other group. And this just ties in when you have the President of the United States calling Trump supporters garbage, when you have New York's Governor Hochul suggesting if you vote Republican, you're anti-American, you're anti-women. The list goes on and on. So it should come as no surprise that a government bureaucracy is telling people to avoid Trump supporters because, look, Trump supporters are the worst, according to bureaucrats who have had so much to gain from a Harris campaign being victorious and gained a lot, obviously, with big government during the Biden administration. If a Trump supporter or two harassed federal workers on the ground in the wake of Hurricane Milton, that's wrong. But it's no way justifies what followed. These hypothetical Trump voters can't be the first to lash out after enduring a hurricane or tornado or earthquake. All this, of course, comes in the wake of the prosecution of Trump himself, a crackdown on pro-life activists, and the Biden administration's war on disinformation, i.e. opposing viewpoints. On an increasingly frequent basis, Americans are reminded of the sad, provocative truth that elements within their own government see their mission as withholding assistance or even harassing rather than serving certain deplorable, we would even say garbage, segments of society. Trump's resounding victory has brought with it much gnashing of teeth over what he might do to his political opponents. It doesn't take a psychologist to diagnose such a case of projection. Time will tell how often this policy has been used to rationalize the indefensible. But in the meantime, the left ought to take a long, hard look in the mirror. Yes, not helping, FEMA not helping Trump supporters. The outrage, it should be on every outlet. Of course, it isn't. But the outrage here, and again, like Isaac Shore says, and what a great point, that at a time when we heard over and over and over again that the Trump administration is going to, quote, attack its enemies or whatever, go after its enemies, when they're literally, as a point of policy, saying, do not go help people that had Trump signs on their porches or waving a flag. It's amazing. I know we're covering a lot this morning. Stay with us. Got a lot of waves coming in, too. I really appreciate it. We are going to talk about Trump's picks, I swear. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you never have to worry about thinking too big? Because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
Isn't this important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Football's newest show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you talking about. but I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
And we are back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street in Corning. So many great comments coming in, so many waves. I appreciate it. We are going to talk about the Trump transition team and the announcements they made yesterday about the potential administration. That's coming up here in just a little bit. A couple comments from viewers. We all know prices don't come down, but prices never had to go up the way they did either. Biden admitted that the Inflation Reduction Act, and this was in a press conference, I recall this, it was never meant to reduce inflation. It was meant to be the biggest investment in green energy. All of us didn't have to pay for it for years because people's pockets were promised to be lined. Podesta just had a press conference where he promised that he would make sure that all the money that was promised would be received. That is absolutely unacceptable. Doesn't matter who is in charge, like the Affordable Care Act. If you want to know what is in it, you'll have to wait till it is passed. This viewer says he or she sells insurance. Another example of one of the biggest scams ever. People make $21,000 a year. Maximum out-of-pockets are $9,450. Yet the insurance carriers are still getting their billions and billions of dollars a year in subsidies. Yet doctors report that they will no longer work with the carriers because they don't pay their bills. Then to qualify for ACA, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare plans, the minimum income requirement is based on what people receive basically on disability benefits a month. Guess what? What they get a month just isn't enough to qualify for ACA plans, but they earn too much to qualify for Medicaid. You want to talk about something that was supposed to be good for all. Now, because this administration has made it where if you don't have private insurance through a job, the only thing you can be offered during open enrollment is ACA plans. Can't offer anything else other than health shares if available, then outside of open enrollment. We are only allowed to offer 3 months short-term insurance with a 1-month extension that won't cover pre-existing conditions. People are being forced into contributing to feeding the beast. Kansas has a co-op that costs $50 a person per month that allows you to see any doctor you need and then have that procedure you need to have done. That is viable. Thank you very much. A comment from a different viewer. The Biden administration should worry less about what President Trump will do to them and more about what American people themselves have done to them by voting them out because of their policies. Thank you very much. That's a good point. One quick thing, just because I mentioned this, well, it's kind of 2 quick things. It's about 5 quick things before we talk about the transition. Jill Biden giving Kamala Harris the cold shoulder yesterday. Now, I bring this up because Joe Biden and Donald Trump are going to meet today in that tradition to kind of make the transition smoother. We're not sure how that'll go. It'll be interesting. It'll be something we'd love to see. I'm not sure how much camera involvement will be there. But social media erupted following what many characterize as First Lady Jill Biden's icy reception for Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, you know, I guess you really can't blame Jill Biden for that. Jill Biden, you know, her husband was taken out in what has been described as a coup by the Democrat elites to put in someone that ran a disastrous campaign that lost in a landslide. So if you're Jill, and let's face it, the Bidens all have that ego, that narcissism, Joe, Jill, Hunter, and they thought all along that Joe could still win, and that if you use their mindset, Joe is the only one that's proven he could beat Donald Trump back in 2020. So you could understand why it might be a little icy there. Harris and second gentleman Doug Emhoff approached the row of seats from the First Lady right as the Vice President greeted and shook hands with those around her, except Biden. It's safe to say that Jill Biden hates Kamala Harris's guts, said Steve Cortez with a video of the interaction. As Harris took her seat, Biden appeared to look straight ahead through dark sunglasses. Jill Biden refused to even look at Kamala Harris. Wow. Sat there stone-faced. The interaction, or you could really call it the lack thereof, also received international media attention as Italian TV journalist Leonardo Panetta wrote on X in Italian that Harris was ignored by Biden after her defeat. Jill Biden did not get up to greet her and then remained seated next to the vice president wearing sunglasses without deigning to look at her. Good climate in America, he said. One commentator, Benny Arthur Johnson, saying they're not taking the loss well. Watch Jill Biden evidently give Kamala the cold shoulder as she arrives at Arlington National Cemetery. Kamala shook everyone's hand before swiftly racing past Jill as the cameras were rolling. Well, this comes off and Jill's has a lot of issues, I guess, because Melania will not meet with Jill for that tradition because of what happened with the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, that was an awkward video. Just wanted to give you a little highlight of it because we had mentioned it early on in the program. But this kind of ties in with what Daniel McCarthy had to say, and we're going to talk about it just quickly when we come back. Then we're going to run through some real quick other updates, and then we'll go through who's been picked for Trump's second administration so far. Get your opinions on it because I'd love to hear from you. Getting those emails last night were amazing, some of the names being thrown around. And I'm really, well, tell me your thoughts. Who are you, who's your favorite pick? Who do you not like? I know we've had a lot of people comment for quite some time now on this program, before anybody was even picked, but even after, saying that I hope that he doesn't pick anybody like last time that is kind of a backstabber, someone that, you know, comes out later and says he's a threat, or, you know, all of a sudden there's a lot of leaks coming from the White House, hoping that there aren't any kind of turncoats or kind of spies or moles within the organization. Do you think, you can be honest now, I'll read it, I won't give your name or anything. Do you think there's anybody like that you see right now that you're concerned about when it comes to Donald Trump's picks, and who are your favorites? So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. That, of course, our Boss Security roof cam. Thank you for joining us. We got some waves coming in. I like this comment from a viewer. There's a lot of great comments from viewers, as a matter of fact. But this one made me laugh. Tyrus for press secretary. That would get wild, wouldn't it? You've got to say, Tyrus was predicting from the beginning a landslide, and he was correct. He would definitely make an interesting press secretary. We do have some people that are vying for that. We will talk about that in a little bit. One quick thing, because we had mentioned Biden today meets with Trump. We talked about Jill Biden being cold to Kamala Harris. Daniel McCarthy had a really interesting point. And the point he made is Democrats are lost in a leadership crisis. They have nobody on the horizon. Shocked by Trump's sweeping victory, Democrats are playing the blame game. And guess who's the scapegoat? Joe Biden. Democrats who knew, and this is why I say I think a lot of these authors watch Frankly Speaking. Democrats who knew Biden was well past his prime in 2020 and who concealed his frailty all the way until June now say he was selfish to run for re-election. And haven't we been saying that for a week now? Well, before that, they propped him up. They were the ones protecting him. And now they have the audacity, like Nancy Pelosi, to say, well, he got out too late. Should have got out sooner. Well, you should have stopped propping him up in what should be a major scandal, not just for the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, but the media who saw him in the White House, Harris, who had all these meetings with him, protecting him. We were told time and time again, he's great, he's great. And then we saw the debate, and it was all over. Yeah, Biden was the only Democrat, and Daniel McCarthy has a good point. Biden was the only Democrat capable of giving Trump a real fight, as Kamala Harris's dismal performance proved. Make no mistake, any Republican, though, this is a very important point, any Republican other than Trump would also have been branded a fascist and woman hater. But unlike a typical politician, Trump never tried to soften his image to please his enemies. And that's what made him so different. And this is why the Mitt Romneys of the world get so frustrated with him. They don't get that that's what appealed to so many Republicans when it came to Donald Trump, that he wasn't wishy-washy, that when he got up there, he didn't cower to the media like, for instance, and I keep picking on, but Mitt Romney did so often, and so many other politicians, but we're just talking about presidential runs. Cower to the media, wanting to be liked by the media so badly. So Trump never softened his image, and that drove them crazy, Democrats and Republicans alike. But to Daniel McCarthy's point, and it's a great point, and I said it a little bit differently not that long ago, and I hate doing that. I'm not going to keep saying that we predicted it here or something. But if Nikki Haley would have prevailed in the primary over Trump, they would have called her a fascist. They would have attacked her. And make no mistake, because they did this with DeSantis, if you remember, the line that they're going to use in 2028 is going to be, if it's J.D. Vance, which you assume it would be, this man is possibly worse than Trump. Because remember when they said that about DeSantis? He's possibly worse than Trump. So that would have been what was said about Nikki Haley if she was prevailed, in the primary process. But anyway. Biden could only compete with Trump because he reminded voters of the days before Democrats went woke. I think that's an interesting point that he makes there. But he says that the leadership crisis began back with Barack Obama. He goes through and talks about, Gavin Newsom is one person they throw around, but his state's bleeding population, and they're not doing well there financially. Gretchen Whitmer, who had that very awkward pose with the Dorito taking communion. Josh Shapiro was passed over by walls, is less offensive to ordinary American sensibilities. The only man who can save the Democrats is the one they hate the most, Donald Trump. They have to learn from his success, as Ronald Reagan's success taught reluctant Democrats to appreciate free markets. Now that they have to learn to appreciate secure borders and a perspective on economics and foreign policy that puts America and Americans first. If Democrats do that, they'll naturally become less woke and more electable. And I thought that was just a very good point. By the way, speaking of Harris's campaign, we've been talking about the financial problems that they're experiencing right now. Did you see that Harris's campaign donated $500,000 to Al Sharpton's nonprofit before they had that softball MSNBC interview? Some questions there. The Harris Walls campaign funneled some $500,000 to the Reverend Al Sharpton's nonprofit, the National Action Network, prior to the vice president's softball sit-down interview with a civil rights activist. Harris's team made two donations of $250,000 to Sharpton's group on September 5th and then October 1st. The cash flow came in the context of payments totaling $5.4 million to various Black and Latino activist organizations as the campaign set its sights on galvanizing support among minority voters. Just something to keep in mind as we've been talking about Harris's financial woes. We do have a couple other, yes, we are going to talk all about they're calling it the MAGA picks, CNN and others, the MAGA picks for the White House, for Trump's administration. We'll talk about that in a moment. I just feel like we have so many other updates. I want to keep you hooked, but that's not my real reason for delaying the talk. We just have so much to talk about before to catch up. Let's take a short break. I see your comments coming in. Is there anybody concerns you when it comes to picks that Donald Trump has made? Is there anybody that you're very excited about? How's your overall feel? Stay with us. We'll read some comments when we come back. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you think boots, think Hustle Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselson's, Amara Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keen Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Sharing the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud. 7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
And Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. As we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up hour number 1, and we have so many comments. What a perfect way to wrap up the hour. All right, I asked a question. What do you think about the picks Trump has made so far? Are there certain ones that you really, really are excited about? Are there ones that concern you? Because we know Trump had quite an issue back in 2016 with some of the people that he picked. All right, let's go. Comment number 1. I've heard a couple people say they were a little afraid of Marco Rubio's sincerity. But I'm thinking in the long run, for the good of the American people and for the good of the Hispanic community, he will hold true. I think so. I think that comes from, and I agree, I've heard a lot of people say that. And I would say I think a lot of us were a little taken aback by that pick. But Marco Rubio has been, well, I know you can't say loyal, but he has been extremely loyal to Trump. He was out there doing the news cycles, the Sunday shows. He has been very good for Trump. I think that all comes back to Trump back in 2016 in the primaries with little Marco and the picking on him drinking water. But, that was a long time ago. Look at Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been loyal to Trump. So I don't, and Trump said some pretty bad things about Ted Cruz. So if he can come into the Trump fold, yes, I'm not as concerned about Marco Rubio as some. Time will tell, unfortunately, but I like your point that I think it's good for the country and good for the Hispanic community. Next up, normally when a party comes to power, they sneak things through and don't make good on many of their promises anyway. The climate in politics now is kind of like an exploding piñata of their agenda. Like the way Biden opens the border and shut down gas production so quickly. Yeah, it's hit in the ground running. Both parties, and especially with this team, there's a lot of people that have been chomping at the bit for this day to start fixing this country, which excites many people out there. Next up, different comment from a different viewer. I'm surprised by Hegseth, not because I question his patriotism and dedication, rather not sure how in-depth his experience and knowledge is. And the media is definitely latching onto that. And I understand. No, I totally understand what you're saying. Because that was somebody that was so out of left field, not politically, but so out of left field that it surprised people because it wasn't a name in the political arena necessarily. And that's what some representatives are saying. It just doesn't have the experience. That's not always a bad thing. If you think about it, Trump didn't have the political experience to be president in their eyes back in 2016. So there's something to be said about taking people away, outside of Washington and put them in those positions. And especially if Trump believes that person to be a leader, then that leader will step up like Hegseth and do the work that's required of him. Next up, I can already see the banners. Protect your homeland, lock up your dogs. Next up, another comment from a different viewer. Did you see Trump said Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley will not be invited as part of the new administration? What is your thoughts on that? I'm actually not that surprised. I think there's a lot of, and it's not, this theory isn't perfect, but it's time for new blood. Just like with the J.D. Vance pick for vice president, and Pete Hegseth and so many others. I think it's a time for new blood and different ideas and different people. So I'm not, listen, Nikki Haley, with a few exceptions, was pretty good about saying that she supported Trump and that she was going to vote for Trump. Now, there was some time, especially towards the election day, where she said some things that reflected poorly on Trump. So I think it goes back to what we were saying about a question of loyalty and making sure that there isn't what he saw in 2016, leakers and people maybe taking advantage of his administration, or as I think it was Donald J. Trump, or Don Trump Jr. put it, we can't have people in there that think they're smarter than the man that they work for, that think they know better than the man that they work for. Because at the end of the day, it's Trump's agenda, it's Trump's plans. So to continue this, maybe picking someone, and I'm not trying to demean Nikki Haley, but maybe thinks that she could run the country better than Trump, is not someone that you need in there. And I think that may be the reason. Finally, we've got a good one from Ken, but it's a little longer, so I'm going to wait till the next hour. Yeah, we got a couple comments coming in that I'll save for the next hour because we're running real late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, hour number 2, next.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped, I had a gun, and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Hagum. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. A couple of comments that we ran out of time in the last hour that we need to get to. First up, I'm incredibly excited about Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk rolling up their sleeves. I knew there would be a lot of viewers here that would feel that way because we really from the beginning have heard from so many viewers that support Vivek and Elon Musk getting involved. And I've got to say, just anecdotally, talking to some people that I would have normally not thought would lean Republican or definitely lean Trump, really intrigued by Elon Musk being a part of Trump's campaign and now a part of his administration in a way with the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay, another comment. Most Dem donors would be madder than a wet hen, I haven't heard that in a while, if they knew their campaign donations were used to enrich people like Oprah and Sharpton. However, they will never hear about it because they don't watch Fox News. And if they did see it on Fox, they all know what the legacy media tells them. Fox News lies. Yeah, that's a very good point. And we've got more from Ken in just a second. But yeah, they're not going to hear about it. Most people will tell you that they're shocked if you tell them that Kamala Harris raised over $1 billion. Oh, and she's around $20 million in debt after that billion and some. And then you start looking at the people that got paid. And, Oprah's denied that the payment went directly to her, that it was about production. But $1 million isn't chump change to build a set for one virtual town hall or whatever it was. I don't remember, a virtual meeting. But we also heard she spent a lot for that podcast because they wanted to set it up. This was something that was weird about Harris. I don't know if she needed a home court advantage or something, but setting up a studio in a different location to make her feel more comfortable. Now, that makes sense because they wanted Joe Rogan to travel to her to do the interview, and he refused to do it, saying that it's better in his studio. And she happened to be in Texas, so it's kind of she had no excuse. So there was something there, and it may be just, everybody has their little issues that maybe she just feels that she wants to be on some type of home court advantage and not in somebody else's studio. I'm not sure. She did so little media, no press conferences. Another reason why she lost, but in hindsight, I guess she saved time. All right, another comment from Ken. As you know, I'm cynical on most things in our government. I understand. I hope I'm wrong, but forecast the following. History is our guide on how the Democrats are going to respond to the second Trump presidency. It'll be similar to the first, but since they know that the majority of the country isn't on board with their long-term plans, they will step it up. The Dems in the Senate and House will put as many roadblocks in front of Trump's picks for his administration as possible, while saying there needs to be a bipartisan Congress. I agree. Liberal judges will block deportations, executive orders, policy changes, reducing the amount of deep state employees, and any other way that they can slow him down. Yes, you always know the activist judges are going to get involved and slow down Trump. That's history will repeat itself there. I agree. The intelligence agencies will hide information and work to not comply with his administration, sadly. Because remember, we're talking about the swamp that Trump has talked so often about. He still has those people, unfortunately. They're not people he gets to choose, that they're still there. And hopefully that's why, Vivek and Musk and others will get in there and start cleaning things up. And you can only hope that that's the case, because those bureaucrats, again, going back to what we were saying in the last hour, think they know better how to run the country. We saw it so much in 2016. They thought they knew better on how to run the country than the president of the United States. The president that was elected by the people, the bureaucrats, the nameless, faceless bureaucrats, thought that they could run it better and knew better than the dumb American people. So that's a good point, but I'll continue with what Ken had to say. The deep state managers are probably working right now to have as many employees update their contracts, yes, with assurances that they can only be fired for cause, so Elon can't legally fire them. That's a good point. There'll be more chaos created this time around than last time. The Democrats will never relent on pushing their agenda to enrich themselves. I do think there'll be just as much, if not more, chaos. And the worst part about that, well, there's a lot of bad parts about that, but then they'll blame Trump for the chaos. So the media and the bureaucrats will, and the Washington politicians will try to create as much chaos as possible and then come out and say, look at how much chaos Trump has created. And you may say, well, I thought this would kind of already happen. We're starting to see a little bit of this with the release of so many people that he wants in his administration. You're starting to see the more extreme rhetoric come out. And I mentioned, again, I know depending on what outlets you go to, you maybe have seen a lot of this outrage. I've seen some videos from MSNBC and elsewhere. And yes, there already is this outrage, but you thought maybe there'd be a little bit of soul searching. I say that almost sarcastically because I think those that watch, remember 2016, know that there wasn't going to be any soul searching, even though it was a landslide victory. So, yes, I do think there is going to be, just to get away from that tangent, a lot of chaos. There's not going to be a lot of soul searching. There's going to be a lot more attacks. There's going to be a lot more, Trump supporters are garbage type statements than before. If they're already talking about maybe you don't meet up with your family who supported Trump for Thanksgiving. If that's starting on November, I assume yesterday, the 12th, then just buckle up. But it's not working. CNN boss Mark Thompson is going to lay off hundreds after the election day ratings wipeout. Ratings challenge CNN is reportedly set for a major bloodbath, with boss Mark Thompson expected to lay off high-priced on-air talent as part of a wide-ranging layoff plan. The cable network, which lagged behind rivals MSNBC and Fox News during last week's election night coverage, will implement, quote, layoffs that will impact hundreds of employees across the organization. So if they haven't learned yet at CNN, will they ever learn? Will other outlets ever learn? I don't think so. And here's one example, just to show you the media bias. And then we're going to talk about this idea of loyalty. Republican euphoria, okay, got my attention, punctured by tough math in the House. Can you imagine? It looks like an overall landslide trifecta for Republicans. That Not only did they get the White House, they then get the Senate, and now it looks likely that they will get the House. Now, if this was Democrats, the media would be writing the article saying, is this the death of the Republican Party? Will they ever be able to come back? Are they forever ruined? They might as well move on. You might as well start a third party. You've seen it with just sometimes midterm elections where it's the end of the Republican Party as you know it. Well, with the shoe on the other foot and Republicans having a landslide election night, now the euphoria is punctured by tough math in the House. So yes, it looks like you're going to win, but boy, it's tough math. Would that be a article? This is from the Wall Street Journal. Would that ever be an article that you would see for Democrats? Democrats euphoria punctured by tough math in the House. No. It just goes to show you where their mind is at. And it's like I was saying after election night. It was so interesting to watch the election night coverage, flipping through the channels to see the various reactions, and to see on the mainstream media them presenting the numbers, presenting it in a way to try to ease your mind, ease your concern, because they know that if you're watching, you had to be a Harris supporter, because that's all there is. You couldn't be, you wouldn't be one of the garbage voters. You'd have to be a Harris voter. So they presented it as if the whole country was Harris voters, and they had to explain to them why it's still not horrible for her. It still could possibly go her way. And everything was about her. This is the same example. Talk about just trying to find, I guess, a little bit of a silver lining for them, for the left, that the euphoria of Republicans was being punctured by tough math in the House. Speaker Mike Johnson willing to work with whatever margin I have to advance President-elect Donald Trump's agenda. House Republicans on the verge of clinching a majority in the next Congress are already taking a victory lap. But their expected slim margin and unruly nature could undercut their efforts to pass President-elect Donald Trump's agenda. All right. Anyway, that was just a quick example of the media. I've got some other, trust me, on the media when it comes to these picks that Trump has made. You want to go through the list? If you're just waking up this morning, why don't we do that after break? Because I ran really late every break last hour. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, and we'll read more of your comments when we come back. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hustling plus overbooked plus bustling plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done. Hustling plus too busy plus bustling plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, a local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. It's beautiful out there on Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. So many comments coming in this morning. I've been asking the question, what do you think of Donald Trump's picks for his administration? Anybody you're really looking forward to? Anybody that you're concerned about? We saw 2016, and that's something that people have been bringing up in this program for quite some time, even during the election, that they were concerned that he, and I do think experience has taught him to be very, very careful about who you pick. But is there anybody on that list that concerns you? We'll get to that list in just a second. Comment from a viewer. I think we all are beyond weary of the chaos of the past distractions by the left and all the talking heads spreading misinformation. Can we now push back, please, and somehow tone it down? We have a lot of work to do. Nobody wants 4 more years of that. Yes, no one does, except for the mainstream media who profits off of it, except for the Democrats who will benefit financially from it. What I mean about that is if you have someone fighting Trump tooth and nail and finds out a way to stop some piece of legislation or gets a judge involved to block some executive order, they will have, like the money that we saw coming into Harris's campaign, $1 billion. Yes, she spent even more than that, and she's $20 million at that. But all that money goes to a politician, a congressperson who will fight Trump. And they know that. That's why you'll see the radicalism. And then, of course, the mainstream media believes that they'll make money off of it. I don't believe they are correct. And I think the layoffs, CNN prove that, or the potential layoffs prove that. All right, so who's been picked for Trump's second administration thus far? Well, I think it goes without saying, we know J.D. Vance. Second, Secretary of Defense. This was the shock that came in late yesterday. Trump tapped Fox and Friends weekend host Pete Hegseth to lead as Secretary of Defense, to lead the DOD. Hegseth is an Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran who has received 2 Bronze Stars. He is the unexpected pick for the position, with Senator Joni Ernst and former Representative Tulsi Gabbard vying for the role. Many thought it would, maybe, anyway. I don't know if they actually bet on it, but I think the betting money would have went to Tulsi Gabbard. I'm telling you, I never heard anybody mention Pete Hegseth. I never heard anybody saying that that was going to be the choice. That's why, that's very typical in Trump fashion, right? That is no way criticism. That's something that you expect from Trump, meaning the unexpected. And that's exactly what we saw with that pick. Now, he is a graduate of Princeton University and got his master's from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. What are your thoughts on that pick? Next up, Department of Homeland Security. This one surprised me a little bit, only because she fell out of favor. We're going to talk about this whole idea that loyalty is a bad thing, as if every president in the history of the country hasn't picked people for their administration that are loyal to them. Man, when the media latch onto a word or latch onto something they think is scary and will concern voters, they use it, don't they? Can you believe Trump picked Trump loyalists for his administration? I thought he was going to pick Harris loyalists. Anyway. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem has been chosen to oversee Trump's Department of Homeland Security. As Homeland Security Secretary, Noem will oversee ICE and be tasked with implementing much of Trump's deportation and border security plans. The South Dakota governor was once in contention for that VP pick, but you remember she wrote that story, which I still don't understand why she put it in her memoir, that she once killed her puppy Cricket after she determined it was untrainable. Next up, CIA Director John Ratcliffe. John Ratcliffe is a former Texas congressman who was Trump's Director of National Intelligence during his first term. While serving as head of the National Intelligence, Ratcliffe denied the unproven allegation made by the spies who lied that Hunter Biden's laptop was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. He is saying at the time Hunter's laptop is not part of some Russian disinformation campaign. He is seen as a massive hawk on China and has accused the communist country of engaging in a massive cover-up of the origins of COVID-19. Next up, and this was exciting for New Yorkers, not just a couple of excitement. But UN Ambassador Elise Stefanik, there is a really interesting piece saying that finally she is the person we need to clean up the UN. But Representative Elise Stefanik has been picked to be Trump's UN ambassador. That you've got to wonder. I'll ask you this question too, and I don't know if anybody really has an answer. If you're as powerful as she is in Congress, she's the fourth highest ranking GOP member of the House. Do you give up? You've got to. But a lot of people would say, wow, you give up a cushy job in Congress where you're really good at it to take a very tough position as ambassador to the UN. And then it's not like you go back and primary the person that took your seat. So this is a huge stepping stone in a way, in a good way, not stepping stone like a derogatory term. But you go to UN ambassador, and of course she's got a bright future ahead of her, even if she didn't take the UN ambassador position. But that's just interesting to me because you can't go back home, right? But obviously you would choose U.S. ambassador to the UN. Don't get me wrong. Just life-changing decisions here. Border czar Tom Homan, we've talked about him. We talked about him extensively yesterday. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, we talked about that as well. And of course, the one that most people, not most people, a lot of people seem very extra excited about, the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk. They've been tapped to run the new Department of Government Efficiency. Ramaswamy is, well, I don't have to give you your whole history of both of them. The Department of Government Efficiency is a new agency established to oversee and reduce federal spending. Its initials spell out Doge, which is a meme-based cryptocurrency. I wonder whose idea that was, to call it that and so they could call it Doge. Someone was very clever there. And National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. As we just got used to saying Walls, now we have to go back to Waltz. Representative Mike Waltz was tapped to serve as National Security Advisor. The Florida congressman was the first Green Beret ever to be elected in the House. He is seen as a China hawk and has been highly critical of Biden's botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. And then you had Stephen Miller, the senior advisor. He's in there as well. So there's your list. Last night, a lot of announcements coming in. If you receive Donald Trump's emails from the transition team, something like 17 pages of statements. We probably won't. I will. There was a couple statements I did actually want to read, and we're not going to go through all of them because if you get the email, this would be very frustrating for you. But there's a couple that I thought worth mentioning because I didn't mention that Mike Huckabee is nominated. I did earlier in the program, but nominated for ambassador to Israel. I am sorry, a little background noise there, folks. I am pleased to announce that the highly respected former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, has been nominated to be the United States ambassador to Israel. Mike has been a great public servant, governor, and leader in faith for many years. He loves Israel and the people of Israel, and likewise the people of Israel love him. Mike will work tirelessly to bring about peace in the Middle East. That was one statement, and I know just because so many people are interested in Vivek and Elon, we'll read that statement quickly. I am pleased to announce the great Elon Musk, working in conjunction with American patriot Vivek Ramaswamy, will lead the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies essential to the Save America movement. This will send shockwaves through the system and anyone involved in government waste, which is a lot of people, stated Mr. Musk. This, again, coming from the Trump Vance transition team. And the government waste, that's going to be very interesting. It will become potentially the Manhattan Project of our time. Republican politicians have dreamed about the objectives of DOGE for a very long time. To drive this kind of drastic change, the Department of Government Efficiency will provide advice and guidance from outside of government and will partner with the White House and Office of Management and Budget to drive large-scale structural reform and create an entrepreneurial approach to government never seen before. I look forward to Elon and Vivek making changes to the federal bureaucracy with an eye on efficiency and, at the same time, making life better for all Americans. Importantly, we will drive out the massive waste and fraud which exists throughout our annual $6.5 trillion of government spending. They will work together to liberate our economy and make the U.S. government accountable to we the people. This work will conclude no later than July 4th, 2026. A smaller government with more efficiency and less bureaucracy will be the perfect gift to America on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. I'm confident they will succeed. That was a powerful statement from the Trump, well, from specifically Donald J. Trump, but from the Trump-Vance transition team. We've got to take a short break. If you wanted to hear anybody else's statements, I've got them all printed out. And when I say statements, there's statements made by Trump regarding his picks. Feel free. And again, I want to hear your takes on all of them, your thoughts on what this means. Is there anybody that concerns you? Is there anybody you really look forward to hearing more from and seeing how the process goes? And we are also going to talk about this idea of loyalty being a dirty word when it comes to making your picks for your administration. All that and much more. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-781-9990 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-781-9990. 1-800-781-9990. Call now.
Hi, I'm Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the comments this morning and all the waves. So much to talk about when it comes to the administration of Donald J. Trump. This is a comment from a viewer. Seems like Trump is picking a great team to drain the swamp. I'm really hoping that wasn't autocorrect, that you actually spelled great as G-R-A-T-E, because that's how appropriate. You had to, right? Seems like Trump is picking a great team to drain the swamp. I like that. If not, I like it. Okay, so yes, the big announcement, or I guess the surprise announcement would be Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Surprised by the fact that it wasn't, I don't think it was on anybody's list that he was even in the running for any position, because last I had checked, I think a lot of people were thinking it would be Tulsi Gabbard. It was even mentioned on one of the programs I was watching on Fox that it was almost assumed that she would be Secretary of Defense. Now Trump saying that Pete has spent his entire life as a warrior for the troops and for the country. Pete is tough, smart, and a true believer in America first. With Pete at the helm, America's enemies are on notice. Our military will be great again, and America will never back down. Some speculating that it was actually the book that he had written that kind of tipped him over the edge. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now, the choice was deemed as unorthodox, as Senator Joni Ernst was on the list, having earned favor in military circles for working closely with the Pentagon on defense legislation. You had Mike Rogers' name in the hat. You had Tulsi Gabbard, as I mentioned. Now, Hegseth, who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, has been with the Fox News since 2014, most recently as a co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Fox spokesperson saying Pete Hegseth has been an exceptional host on Fox and Friends and Fox Nation and a best-selling author for Fox News books for nearly a decade. His insights and analysis, especially about the military, resonated deeply with our viewers and made the program the major success that it is today. We're extremely proud of his work at Fox News and wish him the best of luck in Washington. Now, there are some, this is typical of what we've been talking about this morning, kind of the sky is falling mentality. Democrat Representative Dan Goldman from New York, he was on CNN out front. Now, I bring you these quotes because according to the ratings, no one's watching CNN, so I will bring them to you and do that dirty work for you. And I mention that because there's hundreds being laid off because their ratings were behind MSNBC on Election Day. Now, I understand that, though, because if you want your worldview confirmed, if you want to think that Harris is going to win and get no other opinion, you go to MSNBC. In this case, it costs CNN greatly, and it looks as if over 100 layoffs. But I'll continue. So he's on CNN's Out Front. And host Aaron Burnett asks him, first, Pete Hegseth, Trump's choosing him, the Fox News host, for defense secretary. What do you think? Representative Dan Goldman said, I'm shocked, truly. This is exactly what we worry about and warned about Donald Trump, which is that he is going to appoint unqualified loyalists to shape this government into his own personal fiefdom and get revenge on generals and put essentially really unqualified people in. I appreciate Mr. Hegseth's service in our armed forces, but being a serviceman does not make you qualified to lead the Department of Defense and to have access to our nuclear weapons. I'm very disturbed by this, and I'm very concerned about what it demonstrates about Donald Trump's priorities, which now seem to be coming true, as many of us warned. He's been his biggest cheerleader on Fox News, the biggest cheerleader network. This is not what makes one qualified to be a cabinet secretary and secretary of defense. Goldman concluded, it's bad enough that you have Kristi Noem, who has zero experience with the border, with Homeland Security, being a governor from South Dakota, heading up our Department of Homeland Security. Now you have a Fox News host who has got his finger on the nuclear weapons. It's very dangerous. I like the Kristi Noem theory there. As for the last 4 years, not a problem with open borders. Now all of a sudden, the border should be laser-like focused on. Interesting, but the idea that they're shocked that he would pick this, and I love that word, which is he's going to appoint unqualified loyalists to shape this government into his own personal fiefdom and get revenge on generals and put essentially really unqualified people in there. Now, we're going to tell you in a moment why I think, the overuse of that term loyal. Has there ever been a president that didn't look for loyal people to be in his cabinet to work around him out of curiosity? Is that not normally maybe priority number one when you sit down and do the interview for the job, when you look at resumes? But to overstate that and to, again, they want the bureaucrats in there. They want the people that have been in Washington 100 years to be the person that's appointed. They don't want anybody thinking outside the box. They want things done as Washington, and I mean people like Representative Goldman. They want Washington to be run by Washington. They want to do things the way they've always been done, even if they don't work. So Trump, thinking outside the box, as would be expected, and one of the reasons why he was supported. But think of what we talked about earlier about the chaos. This person is already suggesting that there will be chaos from someone because he didn't like the pick, that it was already going to be used by Trump, not knowing the first thing about the agenda, saying that this points to what they all warned, and there's other media people that have said this, but what they all warned, that it was a real fear that he would put in people there that would do his bidding. Again, as if not every single president has done that. I'm going to give you some more examples of the media overhyping it. But it was suggested Pete Hegseth, his book on the woke Pentagon is what helped him land Secretary of Defense, that nomination, I should say. Trump shocked political observers with the pick. But Hegseth authored The War on Warriors, a best-selling book in which the Trump nominee blames the woke military for the recruiting crisis facing the nation's armed services. For the past 3 years, after President Barack Obama poured the Social Justice Foundation, the Pentagon, across all branches, has embraced a social justice message of gender equality, racial diversity, climate stupidity, and the LGBTQA alphabet soup in their recruiting pushes, Hegseth wrote in his book. So they believe that's really what put him... This best-selling book, is what put him over the edge to land the Secretary of Defense nomination. Okay, when we come back, we're going to show you a little bit more about what the media is saying about the picks from last night and from the last couple days, and we'll take a look at some other issues regarding this, and we have hopefully time for a couple New York State issues. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Our water's better tasting, it's better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, the portable oxygen concentrator that moves with you.
This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do. You just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen portable oxygen systems are small and light and deliver up to 12 hours of medical-grade oxygen on a single charge.
Now that I've got my Inogen, I've got my freedom back. I'm back to living again.
Try an Inogen system free for 14 days.
Call now.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
I look nice, don't I?
I see you.
Yeah.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Oh, man, that's the best one yet.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one.
All right.
High school. Yeah.
Hey, Dad. Do you want to talk about what happened earlier?
Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age. Some others don't.
Thank you to Boss Security for bringing us the roof cam. Boss Security in Horseheads. Call them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. So Stephen Collinson from CNN says Trump rolls out his most MAGA picks for new White House term. Again, no president ever picks a team that they don't believe is going to be loyal to them. It was a night of MAGA shock and awe that even Donald Trump's most devoted fans might not have dreamed possible. But the president-elect's blizzard of cabinet and staff picks, each one more unorthodox than the last, only bolstered fears among his critics that his chaotic crew is about to take the country on a dangerous ride. And the headline here on CNN as Trump rolls out the most MAGA picks for new White House term, the clickbait was worrying people about their extremes. So let me ask that question to you. I pose that question to you. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. Are you worried about the MAGA extremists, as they say, being a part of this cabinet, that it's going to be a dangerous ride for the country? Now, where that comes from, I'm not sure. I guess it's just Stephen Collinson's opinion. I don't see any hard evidence here that there's reason for concern that the country is about to go on a dangerous ride. But see, how he sells that is among his critics, well, Stephen Collinson undoubtedly being one of those critics, but if you just label it to somebody else, some have said, some critics have said, and then you can say whatever you want. Trump named his new super buddy, Elon Musk, to head the new department to government agencies and budgets. Musk is an authentic genius and visionary. But in his new job, the world's richest man may be able to wipe out governance and regulations while enjoying the vast federal contracts for his businesses. Again, none of this is based on reality. It's could, maybe, and of course they're looking at it from the view that everything is going to be bad. So, of course, they have that twisted worldview when it comes to these issues. It's a situation that makes the ethical alarms and conflicts of interest of Trump's first term look minuscule by comparison. There's the threat that we've already talked about this morning on the program about the chaos that we saw in 2016 that they created and then blamed Trump for, that we're already seeing a warning. This is kind of the wink, wink, nudge, nudge from Stephen Collinson. It's a situation that makes the ethical alarms and conflicts of interest of Trump's first term look minuscule in comparison. Already warning you, get ready for the lawsuits, get ready for the congressional hearings, all because Elon Musk could, in Stephen Collinson's mind, use this job, who he calls Musk a genius and a visionary, to use his power in this position to give him federal contracts for his businesses. Now, none of this has been done, but you see where their mindset is from the beginning, that anybody that voted for Trump, not just that are going to be in his administration, are extremists. It's the same mindset that got Joe Biden to call Trump supporters garbage, or Governor Hochul to call Republicans anti-American, anti-women, or we can go back to deplorables or bitter clingers. They see anybody that supports Trump, whether it's with a single vote or whether it's with financial donations like with Elon Musk, or at campaign rallies like Elon Musk and others, that has to be an extremist. Musk will be joined at what Trump is calling the Department of Government Efficiency by rabble-rousing GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, who left little doubt that the plan is to eviscerate government itself. Okay, I know he wrote that's supposed to scare you and trouble you. Shut it down, he posted on X, which is now owned by Musk, and now bristling with pro-Trump propaganda, as compared to the propaganda that you normally get, which would be pro-Democrat propaganda on mainstream media. No, in this case, they're just using an example to even go after X. Interesting. It is unclear how this new department, which Trump said would provide advice and guidance from outside of government, would actually operate. So now he admits in that statement, and I know I'm giving too much time to Stephen Collinson, but admitting in that statement, have no idea what that actual position is going to do or how it's going to work, but it's got to be extreme, it's got to be dangerous, and Elon Musk is involved, so he'll probably make money off of it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through him dissecting every one, but Trump is reaping the rewards of his victory. Is that seen as like when he's interviewing loyalists to be on his cabinet? Is that a negative? Trump is reaping the rewards of his victory. Have other presidents done that in the past? Or is it just Trump? And here's one I'm not going to even bother to read to you. What Trump is thinking. 4 things are true about Trump's shocking picks for top staffers on Tuesday. The president-elect is entitled to name who he wants to his cabinet and team after the democratic legitimacy of his presidential election victory. But Trump is also taking a risk. While it makes sense to pick outside revolutionaries to tear down governance, many of his picks lack the kind of in-depth experience and knowledge of the departments they will run. They could be churned up by the agencies they're meant to transform. Wow, senators react to Hegseth nomination. Okay, like Dan Goldman, the one Democrat from New York, that he thinks it's troubling. Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton, who can't stand Trump, said the biggest challenge for Hegseth will come if the president-elect puts him in a position of obeying or refusing a potentially unlawful or unconstitutional command. Again, putting ideas, putting thoughts, putting something that's never happened in Trump's mind. It's so frustrating. So you can already see the path that they're going down, which wasn't successful in 2016. They're going to try to repeat here in 2024, putting thoughts and ideas in Trump's mind that never happened, that were never brought up by Trump, and always imagining the worst, always thinking the worst. But we've got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped, I had a gun, and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
And we are back. That there is the Boss Security Roof Cam. Contact them today for your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us this morning. A couple comments from viewers, actually quite a few comments, so I'm going to kind of condense them, but great points about Lloyd Austin and the job that he's done, and yet people like, shows you how important he is. I already forgot his name, from New York, Goldman, was it? Saying, oh, look at the threat that Hegseth could provide, the real threat, not having the expertise. But remember Lloyd Austin, I mean, having a surgery and not telling anybody, going missing. And then if you look at Pete Hegseth's resume, like so many people are saying in these comments, I'm sorry I'm condensing them. Listen, this is the scare tactics. This is the chaos they're already creating to worry people who are already worried, who are already filled with kind of this hate, which is less than 50% of the nation. So this is just playing and stoking those fears. And it's dangerous. It's not where we need to be right now at a time when we should be talking about unifying, is not to come up with hypotheticals and create situations like Stephen Collinson did there from CNN, saying, well, Musk, though a genius, could do bad things, but we're not sure how this is even going to work. And some are saying, it's so frustrating that some are saying, or his critics are saying, well, give us some citation. Who are those critics? Next up, the country's already been on dangerous ride. Wars, economy, flooding borders, et cetera, for a time for a change was overdue. Thank you, viewer. Next up, kind of funny that the commies are calling MAGA extreme. What we've witnessed for the last 8 years has been an extreme, slanderous attack on their mortal enemy, Trump. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. That's been their laser-like focus, and it did not work. And they're shocked by that. And think of that. I know I've said this before, but Kamala Harris raising $1 billion, somehow spending not only over that $1 billion, in debt now $20 million, but add on top of that the free airtime she was given for those 107 days. valuing billions of dollars. Even something as simple as her appearance on Saturday Night Live last Saturday, which broke FCC rules. Even something like that. Trump should take them up on that now. Yeah, say, okay, I want that equal airtime. And he has time to do it. He should say, I want whatever she was on, a minute and a half on Saturday Night Live. Just say what I want to say. But anyway, all that free airtime that she received. So when you think she raised $1 billion and spent $20 million over that, well, guess what? It was a lot more than that. In-kind donations, as it were. Next up. Has this guy ever looked at who Biden appointed? Oh, yeah, this was a combination with Lloyd Austin, yes. Thank you. Okay, so this is the one I've been wanting to bring up, and I don't want to run out of time. Mick Mulvaney. I think he may be watching, frankly speaking. I really do, because this is a longer way of putting what we've been talking about on this program for a while now. The anti-Trump progressive left, at least as embodied in the legacy media, is fairly predictable. A few years ago, they were telling us how Donald Trump was a fascist Nazi sympathizer. A few weeks from now, they'll be clamoring for his removal under the 25th Amendment. In the meantime, outlet after outlet, from CNN to Politico to NPR and beyond, has decided to weigh in on the team Trump is putting together. Just to take a step back, though, think about how long, 3.5 years, nearly 4 years, where they did not question Biden's health. And we already talked about now now they're blaming him, making him the scapegoat. But not only didn't question his health, propped him up, protected him. And to Mulvaney's point, right out of the gate, they're going to say, Trump, we demand health tests, we demand mental tests. It'll be any little slip that he makes, any little comment that he makes that they don't like, they're going to say, does this prove that he's falling? It is so predictable. So they protect Biden for 3.5 years, and you see they are going to start with that line of attack on Trump day one. But continuing. And they all seem very interested in whether or not Trump will hire, quote, adults, as they put it, or whether he will seek to pursue his evil autocratic intentions by hiring a bunch of loyalists. That's a fascinating word, loyalist. It seems to have a lot of flexibility. If you, like the president, it means something like a dedicated public servant who will endeavor to help the duly elected leader of the nation accomplish the agenda that the people voted for. If you don't like the president, it means a toady fascist bent on dismantling democracy and installing a dictatorship. So you can understand the outrage at the heart of most of the media chatter about Trump hiring loyalists. That's a very good point by Mick Mulvaney. Let's be clear, every president, every single one without exception, seeks to hire a loyalist, as we've been saying on this program. Yes, you can pine for the golden age of yore and Lincoln's vaunted team of rivals, but face it, Bill Clinton hired loyalists, as did George Bush, as did Barack Obama. Or you can long for the John Boltons of the world who claim falsely to have frustrated the worst of Trump's passions in the first time around. But you are living in a fantasy world if you think a president would seek to add guardrails to his own administration. Only a child, or possibly the editorial board of the New York Times, would think Eric Holder, for example, wasn't an absolute loyalist for Obama. Cabinet members, and indeed every single one of the roughly 4,000 jobs that any president is charged with filling in an administration, are supposed to be loyalists. Those people are nothing more than the extension of the person sitting in the Oval Office. To be certain, there aren't automations. They're bringing with them their own experiences, expertise, and abilities. But all of those qualifications are expected to be used toward the end of executing the president's agenda. Those people are not supposed to be guardrails. That isn't their job. Yes, there is one position, chief of staff, who essentially gets paid to tell the president things he doesn't want to hear. But if a chief of staff or any staffer assumes the extra constitutional role of a check against the president, he's doing nothing more than frustrating the will of the electorate. And that's what scares us about some of the bureaucrats and the things in the past that we've talked about, where they think that they know more. And I think that's why there's some people that we thought would be chosen that would not be chosen. So anyway, to boil this all down, because we've got to take our last break. So my advice to the left. This is, again, Mick Mulvaney, White House Chief of Staff under Trump. Loosen the clutch on your pearls a little bit. You will get the same guardrails for Trump that you got for Biden, Bush, and Obama. The name on the ballot was Donald J. Trump, not Donald J. Trump, so long as he hires people MSNBC likes. Let's take a short break. Our last break, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks are a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen One, the portable oxygen concentrator you can take almost anywhere.
With this little device, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
The Inogen One is so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen One for 30 days completely risk-free. Give us a call right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days completely risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen One system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 1-800-929-7290. Again, that's 1-800-929-7290.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Thank you again to Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I am your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've got one comment before we go, and then a couple quick things to race through because we are out of time. From a viewer, over half the country stepped aside during the chaos from the first day of the Biden administration, not because of their approval, but because they held half of the citizens hostage by the control of the media, judicial system, purse strings, and borders, all while blaming Trump for the problems they created. Thank you very much. A Trump ally, you remember this name as a lawyer for President Trump, Alina Habba, I don't know if I'm ever saying that exactly right, revealed that she would very seriously consider an opportunity to serve as his White House press secretary. She was asked multiple times by Sean Hannity that had she heard she's the favorite for that role, and she did not rule out the possibility. I leave it to the president and the 3 people that are on my board of directors. That's Luke, Chloe, and Parker, my children. Everybody will know in time. So just an update. Oh, another comment from a viewer. I like this. Fair game and fair play is needed now. Thank you for that. I like the last minute waves that keep coming in. I appreciate it. So I promised I would mention this, and we are nearly out of time, but Michael Goodwin mentions what Governor Hochul, and I think we've glanced over this a little bit. Well, not us. I think many have glanced over this too much. That what she did with that press conference with Letitia James to demean Donald Trump and his supporters, all it did was to hurt the state. Watching Hochul stumble from one blunder to another, Goodwin says, I'm reminded of Casey Stengel's exasperated question about the hapless 1962 Mets. Can't anybody here play this game? As it was with the Mets, the answer for Hochul is no. More than 3 years after she took office, the accidental governor is still afraid to take off the training wheels. She's not running Albany. Albany is running her. Yes, and this is an example, unfortunately, where she thinks, because she's surrounded by yes people, she thinks she's better at this than she is, hence that press conference, hence thinking she's brilliant by saying that if you vote Republican, you're anti-American, anti-women. The list goes on and on. But the state and city are in obvious decline, but she hasn't delivered a single reform big enough to make a real difference. High crime, public disorder, the migrant explosion, inferior schools, and outrageous taxes are driving families out of New York. We all know this. Then to team up with Letitia James, holding a nasty press conference where they took turns warning Trump that they would come after him with hammer and tong if he screwed with their priorities. It was juvenile showboating, and Hochul's decision to team up with James was doubly dumb, given her outrageous civil fraud suit against Trump. At the end of the day, though, he also had this to say, Michael Goodwin, talking about some of the recent headlines from the media, and one of them that he was picking on as well. Trump starts to fill out cabinet with loyal defenders. So he should pick disloyal cabinet? Great question. We're out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for all the waves. Thank you for all the comments. We'll be back tomorrow morning with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll see you at 6. tomorrow morning. Look forward to it already.